It is 6 o'clock. I will call this meeting of the Juneau Utility Commission to order. Roll has been taken. Need a motion to approve the agenda. Motion by Ross, second by Bart to approve the agenda. Any questions? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Approve minutes of the previous meetings. They should be, they'll be in your big book. There, behind the first page is the agenda. That's your agenda, and then you'll have the next ones will be your meeting and minutes.
Right here from April 7th.
Oh,
It was April 7th and April 23rd. So that,
Personnel committee.
that's gonna be your whole packet, those first like 10 pages that you have in there. Those personnel minutes.
I'm sorry for anybody that does not know, this is Doug Lee. He's our other council representative replacing Mr. Groton. So, welcome.
Thanks. Hopefully I'll be able to figure all this out.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
5 years
Okay.
you'll have her done, Pat.
Yeah?
Takes about 5 years.
Okay, we have
I'll say it takes about 2.
a motion,
Second.
motion by Bart, second by Dick to approve minutes of the previous meetings. Any questions? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Personal appearances. MSA is here.
Hello.
So, all right, then we'll move on. Utility payments. Approve the vouchers and the checks.
Move.
Who made the motion? Oh, excuse me. Sorry, Ross. Motion by Ross, second by Bart to approve the vouchers and the checks. Any questions? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Prior month income statements. Any questions on any of that?
We're looking at the ones from March, I think.
Yeah. And the first one is electric department. The second one is in water. And then sewer.
Something on the income statements that's not recorded this month is the interest income for March that wasn't posted by City Hall. Yep. that would be more revenues in there. And a bigger lift income cloud.
Okay.
I don't know that way, why they weren't posted, but.
All right. Anybody have any questions or on the income statements? If not, we will move on. Council acts affecting the utility. Resolution 2/2025, appointment to committees. His name is on the list.
Okay.
So, all right. Moving on. Consumption and loss.
Rained a little more in March, Alex?
Got a little water, yeah. Hot streak could not continue.
Well, if nothing, according to the weather report, the next 2 weeks are supposed to be dry.
Yeah.
If you can believe the weatherman.
It's rain tomorrow.
Yeah. Anybody have any concerns or anything on the,
Doug, you understand it?
No.
Okay, walk him through it quick.
Okay, for a sewage treatment plant, what happens is there's a total flow,
Okay.
and there's a backwash flow, and then there's a sensient flow, and total sold. And ideally, if everything worked correctly, that number at the bottom would be 0, but obviously we have,
18%.
but we have what we call ingress, which might be holes in people's, in our sewer lines, like when it rains, so then we get water coming into those. Or, maybe, maybe it could be also too, like your furnace condensate and your air conditioner condensate would be, technically goes into that and it may not be accounted for in that number as well.
It's just water that comes into the wastewater plant that's not sold.
Yeah,
Got
so,
it.
or we know where it
Or
came
accounted
from, or
for,
we know
yeah.
where it came from.
So is 18% a good number?
No.
No, no? Oh, okay. What do-
110 is good for sewer.
Okay.
So, and then water is, same with the water, we have water pumped and water sold, and then there's things that we can account for, and then we have 181.
Electric department's the only one that
So like,
excels.
say if we had a water main break, well, then that would fall into this.
Can't have leaking electricity.
But a few years ago, we had
Wires over top of
I don't know, where was that, did we have that big leak?
The Dodge County Administration Building.
Yeah, it was big, we had a huge leak under, yeah, that.
Most of it, Doug, is unwanted groundwater
We-
that gets
these
into our
numbers were
collection
much
system
higher for
throughout the
this.
city.
Okay.
And then Nick says anything under 3 years is good, so,
Oh,
for our line loss.
You have line loss through your transformer coils or your conductors, oversized conductors. It's just power that's being stored in conductors or the coils, the transformers that aren't being utilized. You're always gonna have some amount of loss in electrical components.
So, the more it rains generally, the higher these numbers get here, and the amount of loss. So if it rains less, then we have less out of account for.
that's a yearly.
Yes.
Yeah, there's nothing there under 10%.
It has been getting better though. Every road project you do is slowly.
Yeah, there's a lot of groundwater. All right, thanks.
got any questions, just speak up.
Okay.
All right, can we move on? If not, we'll move delinquent, delinquency.
Yeah, so you guys know moratorium's over. We ended up having 20 disconnects, 3 of which we still remain off. Some of those are people, tenants leaving and not coming in, which that ends up just going to the tax revenue, so. It was like 100, and Pam was able to get that down to 30 a few days before disconnects, and then down to 20 the day of disconnects. So that's pretty typical for the first month, is around that 20 number. Seen it as bad as 50 some years.
So the ones that don't pay and bug out, do you go after them with collections or anything? You do, okay.
Pam is very, very good at, she tracks them down, she does it real well.
Unless they own a property, then it goes onto their property tax.
Oh, okay.
Every year.
I'm guessing most of them that bug out are renters, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Figured they'd
Some
go
were,
off.
I don't know, one was a foreclosure that didn't feel like squaring it before he left.
Yeah, I guess if you don't care about your mortgage, you're worried about the rent, though.
Right. So, oh, you guys have disconnected any water?
And people forget you're paying for something you've already used.
Oh, yeah, bill comes at the end of the month instead of the beginning of the month.
Yep. So, okay. We will go to the reports of officials, utility account. Lori.
I gave you guys a packet of scholarships. We got 3 in this time. And you have your judging form there for which one you would like to select. We don't have any specific going for linemen this time again, so I'll be issuing both of them to general college.
And all of them did reside in the city limits?
Yes.
What we normally do is to go through and each one and figure out how you wanna, whether they qualified for the, what check marks into that fairly well.
Yeah, on the judging form, so you would look at the, just review the scholarship and then check whatever boxes they have that qualify on that sheet. Last year we only had 2 applicants, so it was real easy.
Well, if they don't have a 3.0, that's, they just don't get a check mark there, is that it, or?
Correct.
Okay.
I don't feel like you have to use that judging score either. You can just rank, you can read through the 3 and you can rank on what you think is top
Right.
1, 2, 3, and
we do require 3.0 to qualify for this scholarship, correct?
Well, if we do, then 2 ones eliminated.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering about that. But
We always did.
it does say,
Yeah.
that's what I was wondering, it says 3.0 on here, but the one has a 2.9.
Yeah.
Don't we have that form that has the application requirements? I'm pretty sure it's at 3.0 GPA.
Yeah, I'm surprised he applied having one that's less.
It's
Yeah, there's
3.0 is
some-
required, then it makes it easy.
Yeah, we're down to 2.
Now we're down to 2.
That's a shame, because I know this kid, he's supposed to be shadowing me here this summer. He's a good kid. He's a good kid.
Yeah, but any fishes. Nothing wrong with that.
I like he's going in the trades too.
That's the one that got me, is he was going into the trades, and we don't have enough people going into the trades.
Even some of the 4.2 GPAs struggle to get scholarships from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Hmm? Our requirements require a 3.0.
I'm reading it right now.
Yeah, where'd that requirement come from?
I know we just said it a long time ago when we started doing this.
It's written down somewhere?
Yeah, most of them, most all of them have that, some kind of requirement. Some of them more.
Well, I- When I give these things out, it's amazing to see that some of these kids will wind up with 5 or 6 scholarships, and somebody and somebody that could really use it doesn't get one. And, I mean, .1, I know we have a requirement, so, but if we want to play by that rule, yeah.
Do we have that requirement? I'm not seeing it anywhere.
Yeah, the only place I see it is on this, right there.
It's not even stated, it always states that if you reside within the city, you have a high school kid in any school district.
I would think if it's on the list that we sent out to Jocelyn, that they would have done, given that out, they know the grade point average is below 3.0.
We don't have the whole ones on the whole yet, do we?
Oh, I'll send them to the office and
We used to have. Yeah, we should present.
Cities Juneau.
Doesn't say on the
You
application.
have to get your utilities from the city of Juneau. So, you know,
Another old one would have that.
it just says a current cumulative degree GPA, it doesn't say that there's a minimum.
comes down to who we want to pick. Hmm? Well, it doesn't really state that we have to have it 3.0. The application does.
Right.
We got 2 scholarships to give to, so. We got 2 scholarships to give to.
Yep.
So,
Well, aside from the 3.0 thing, I'd pick number 2, because he or she comes highly recommended,
Yeah.
and, I don't know, you're probably not gonna get as many scholarships as number 1 is.
Number one is valedictorian winds up with a wonderful scholarship anyway.
I'm 63 years old, my resume don't look that good. Man, it's just everything.
Yeah. I mean, one wants to be a chiropractor, one wants to be an electrician, the other one wants to be a radiologist.
I'm inclined to go with the radiologist and the electrician.
Yep, I guess I gotta agree.
You're going 2 and 3.
I agree.
So if you want, somebody want to make that a motion?
I make a motion that we go with 2 and 3.
I will second that.
Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. The documents go back in.
Okay, the other item I had for tonight was to discuss and possibly approve unrestricting cash in the depreciation funds. Throughout the audit, our accounting firm asked about electric, must have at one point had a loan, and when you have a loan, you have to have a depreciation fund. Basically, it's just a savings account to make sure that you have 6 months of payments or that type of thing for the loan. And there isn't anything, that we need to have that for, because electric doesn't have a loan. So in that account is about $42,000. So the accounting firm, the auditors were asking if we can have that approved to be unrestricted cash, that we could use it for anything, they would put that in the financial statement notes. That it's not, if it's restricted cash, they have to put a note in statements. And they said there isn't any purpose to have it restricted anymore because we don't have a loan against anything for electric. So then we would be free to use that cash for anything that we choose.
How much was it?
About 42,000. I'm trying.
And nothing else done. I'll find out later.
That applies just to electrical?
Yeah, that was just the electric pump. Because there is one for, water and sewer that they have, but they still have loans out. The water doesn't, water didn't have any, sewer has it. And they have to put in their, loans. And that would be for the go bond loans.
So we're only allowed to be in the LGIP when we have a loan?
No,
I just don't understand why we can't make money on something. It's a local government investment board.
Right.
That is.
yep,
The auditors are suggesting, I don't see why we wouldn't do it, but.
yeah, well, this
Doesn't make
is,
sense why we can't.
yeah, this has nothing to do with the LGIP.
What doesn't?
No, this is if we, for, a loan, if you have a loan out, you have to have a certain amount in case you aren't able to make payments, you have to have that cushion. basically.
I guess I'll make a motion to,
To release the funds?
yeah.
Okay, motion by Bart, second by Ross to
Unrestricted funds.
approve the unrestricted cash.
Okay.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Anything else, Lori?
Been working on the annual POC report, and I've been working with Jill from Open Point Software, to figure out how we're gonna do the job costing, and got the, purchase order section pretty much set up, and new vendors are in. So, working on the setup for that software, so we can start using that. I've noticed a lot more people coming in for paying the bills now that the weather's nice. So Pam's been a little more busy that way.
Okay.
What?
Anybody have any questions for Lori? If not, moving on. Nick?
All right, so first topic I have under mine is discussing possible approval of sale of the 69 kV structure in the industrial park. So if you guys remember, last time I gave out some literature for the site map of industrial park. This was brought forward both by ATC and myself when we took down the industrial substation most recently, which was last year when they were working on the switch pole out in Niels Brothers Field. Over my almost 13 years here, 12 years, we've had to take off the industrial substation, I'd say 10 times due to transmission working on that section of line. The reason we can keep our other substations running is the transmission taps into our substations and doesn't bypass like our industrial. So we have a transmission line that goes through and you got two taps that come off it. To work on that industrial, that transmission section, there's no way to isolate that line for them to safely work on it without killing our substation power for the industrial park. So in front of you, there's a Forester letter. I've been working with Forester and ATC in regards to this project. With the sale of the 69 kV line, some of our substation becomes common facilities, meaning that they would help pay for some of those facilities. You'll see on the last page, those common facilities would equal to $47,000. That includes the fence, the ground grids, the foundations, anything that we put in that has association with the high voltage structures, to also facilitate and keep their equipment in our facility. They would cover those costs as well. They would also purchase our existing structure. We do not know what that cost is at this time. We have our depreciation value, but it's the overall entirety of the substation. It's not broken down like the substation fence is depreciated this much, the power transformer is depreciated this much. It's our whole substation is depreciated this much. We have to figure out what value the equipment we would be selling to ATC. So that number is unknown. With this, Juneau would pay for the initial investment for this ATC work, and ATC would reimburse us over this schedule that you guys see on this last page. And actually, we make money off of this move. So the initial investment, which is an estimate at this time, is $579,000. of that $579,000, $484,000 would be ATC, and the remainder would be our, what we would be using, our equipment. So we have a decision to make. Do we invest in the security of our transmission infrastructure by selling our current 69 kV structures to ATC, paying the initial cost to expand the fence, for ATC to come in and do the work, and then for them to pay us back on the schedule that you guys see on the last page?
Will they
And
pay us for the substation? They pay us something for
They will, the initial cost, they will pay us, but we don't know that number yet.
Okay, so that may actually cover.
Correct.
Some-
I don't know,
that may cover
I couldn't
some of
even
our-
give you a ballpark what it would be at this time, but there is gonna be, I just had an email stating like, do we have any idea what this would cost? And they would have to send out like a third party,
Like give
to give an estimate, like this is what the facilities cost, this is what we'd be willing to pay you, and then we would have to have another vote on this as well. This is not a finalized, here we are, we're going, we're doing this, there's a lot more steps involved. This is basically a motion to move forward with it, have Forster continue to do the discussions with ATC. ATC can make plans, it can go out to bid, we would vote on that, we would vote on the sale, we would vote on this. This would have very little effects, if any, on our ratepayers because we cannot file this on a rate case because we are recouping our costs through this rate schedule. It was like $1.25 per, and that was an estimate. They said it was so small they couldn't even calculate what effect it would have on ratepayers. They said it would be so minimal that the ratepayers wouldn't even see it. But they won't see it because we can't collect it on our rates anyways because we're recouping costs from ATC. We also then, on top of this now, is they continue to pay for payment in lieu of taxes to us. Like we pay the city $9,628 taxes for that substation site. ATC now has facilities there, so they help pay those costs as well. So we keep getting payments from ATC for that. I think, personally, I think this is our step that we need to do to secure our transmission. It also sets us up for when we have to add a 7200 12/9 substation. And that's what you guys see on that second page. The minimum build is for what is needed for ATC. And then the other stuff is the optional if, do we take this time to, there's a crew on site to do foundations, conduits, ground grid oil containment for our potentially future substation. This is what the transform regulators would cost, transruptor, material packages, so on and so forth for each additional thing. I don't think we need to do this because we have things that we need to do yet, like change out our substations to do voltage transformers, make sure we have all of our 3 kV conductors converted to 15 kV. There's a lot of things we need to do first on our system. I don't want to get ahead of the horse by, let's go ahead and do this. But there's also the thought of it's $547,000 estimate now. What's it going to be in 5 years? It's going to be more than $547,000. So there's always that to think about too. But I think with us recouping costs over a scheduled period, we have talked to Lori where we would get this initial, if we would invest in, or if we would call for a loan, or if we had money for this. What did you say, Lori?
We do have money in the utility plan account that's in the LGIP that is invested. But that would probably, that wouldn't leave you with much left over. And think there's about 700,000 in there, so we'd use them to check for that.
I know when we first started talking about this was gonna be a fall-winter project of 2026. Obviously, every month that we go, this pushes it back. This might even be in 2027 with where we're at right now. I don't think this motion puts us where we are committed to anything. I think this motion puts us where we would like to keep going forward with Forrester to figure out
For
what-
engineering and
Right.
other things.
Right. At any time, we can say, okay, the actual price came back, that 579 might be 320. He said he went really high, just so that it wouldn't be a shock, but he sees that this, that 579 being drastically reduced.
What changed with ATC that they wanna do this payout program where, you know, before, whenever they did anything with the line, they always, we had to orchestrate it. We turned over the bills and we got paid back in full. How come this one is different, that they wanna do yearly payments reimbursing us?
So, I did ask that question, and
I hope you did.
I got a very confusing answer based on they are not allowed to outright pay for an infrastructure upgrade within the Juneau system. They have to do a scheduled payment plan, because then that doesn't affect our wholesale rates, not just us, it'd be across the whole the ATC system. If they do it this way, their rates don't change either, just like ours.
So they're defining the high line that encompasses Juneau on the west side as well as the east side as the end of ownership.
Yep, where the taps come
Where the
in,
taps
it's
come-
still ATCs, but it's supplying Juneau specific. And
So
that's
they
why
have they're not taking any ownership of the sub.
No, they're paying for common facilities. They are taking ownership of the high voltage structures, not the substation. They don't own the substation, we do. They're paying us to have their facilities in there.
So where the GOABs are in the line that separates the high voltage from the substation, those are owned by us,
No, they own the high voltage switches.
the switches.
Yeah, as soon as the taps come off of those high voltage switches to our transducer, that becomes us then. They own the footings, the steel structures, the insulators, the switches on high voltage, the taps going to the pole. But they pay us to have their facilities within our substation. But they also take over they pay for common facilities they now have the ground onto our substation ground bed, so they pay for shared costs of everything. And the only way they can do that is by a payment schedule. They can't purchase it and do a capital payment to Juneau Utilities.
Is that a manual operated switch or is that
It's
a
manual.
manual
But
operated
they want to put in,
electric?
oil reclosures in there. And it
And
would
they're
have,
gonna own that.
yep. They would come in, they would do the testings.
Okay. I'm just so accustomed that dealing with them on the other two projects that whenever we invested or we had an agreement up front, we executed the work, we turned the bill over to them, they took ownership at that time and cut us a check back. So this was kind of baffling to see that they're handing it off in $40,000 increments, you know, over a period of.
And this is certainly something I can bring up to them again.
That was my other
Formal.
question, is this negotiable?
I don't think the payment schedule is negotiable. I think that is like rule mandated that this is how they have to do it, 'cause that was what I got over the phone. But what I can request is a form just like this of the details on why ATC can't give us a direct payment. I think what's negotiable is the payments of our 69 kV structures in our substation. I think that's gonna be negotiable. But I don't think that this initial investment that we and ATC are taking, could. This motion is just giving me and Forrester the direction of, is this something we wanna do? Let's keep looking into this, let's refine these estimates, let's refine what the 69 kV structure, sale would cost, let's refine this payment plan. This isn't worth doing it.
Well, my opinion, for what it's worth there, and we talked about that last month, I'm kind of disappointed that Forrester didn't have that isolation of that substation with the proper switching in when the substation was designed. So we kind of should spank them a little bit on that end of things. But, yeah, we definitely want to be able, at least preserve the option of being able to isolate that substation and not take everybody out of line there to do it, to switch over, so.
And another pro of this does prolong us to be able to not have to be forced into investing in this fourth substation, because we don't get in trouble when we're operating on 3 substations. We get in trouble when we're operating on 2 substations, where we're divvying the load to 2 subs. Right now, we're good, but we don't know what that future holds. That's what, we're sitting at about 89% capacity when we are on 2 substations.
I also think if this can possibly prolong the updating of going from our 41.6 supply voltage, with all that investment in every transformer that's out there, that, I mean, virtually would bankrupt us to try and switch all those transmission or all those transformers in everybody's backyard that haven't been updated to the new voltage ones. Because that could serve us for many years yet, to serve the city of Juneau well past your retirement, Nick, you know, whatever, so. Yeah, I think it's a good investment, that minimum breakdown there. I'd like to see Nick negotiate even maybe a better deal with them, but maybe that's cut in stone. Maybe they do this in every other community where they don't wanna, you know, sweeten the pot for us, but like I said, we're doing this basically because of the fact that it wasn't really set up properly from the get-go. So.
No, it wasn't set up properly to the get-go, and ATC standards switched 5 years after industrial substation was built. They changed it 15 years ago, so it would have been 2 years after the industrial substation was changed. That's when we had to change all of our height, we had to lower all of our poles on the underbuild on the transmission, and they increased their center line easements to 40 foot instead of 20 foot. So all the distancing changed as well, the ATC's new standards, so.
Doug, just for your benefit, there we have 3 substations in town, one right behind this building, which was the dinosaur for many, many years that fed the whole city. And we added one up by Clearview. There's one up there if you go down Home Road, you see a cage down there. And we have one out in the industrial park sub. So what happened when the industrial park sub was built, it didn't have adequate switching that Nick could easily take these on and offline and shift the load from one substation. So when he says we're okay when we're running on all 3, but when we want to go down to 2 for service purposes, or imagine if there was a storm or something like that or whatever. So he wants, what this is going to do is to give us the flexibility for him to easily do that. And I think this is kind of my bread and butter, I guess, you know. I would highly recommend this utility to at least do the minimum at this time, so that we can definitely provide the switching that we need from shedding load from one substation to the other without causing a lot of blackouts and whatever. So.
Yeah, we don't want those. That's the stuff we went over last week.
But what are you asking for? I don't get it.
I'm just asking for us to move forward with having Forrester communicate with ATC and just to move forward with them.
So
We're not
you
committing to
basically
any-
still wanna investigate the sale?
Right, so anytime I communicate with Forrester with this project, there's a cost. Up to this point, I think we got like $6,000 invested in this LG load interconnected plan with.
Remind them you're
ATC.
mopping up for their shortcomings in design.
Right, well, and that's the thing, if we don't wanna secure transmission, I'm halting it, and I'm not gonna have Forrester look into this anymore. But if we are, and we want this to be seen through, then I will continue working with Forrester. Bring information to you guys when it needs to be done with formal approvals with the actual sale of the 69 kV line, the actual build of the expansion site. We're not approving any of that, we're just approving, if you guys think this is wise for us to move forward, let's do it. If not, then I'm gonna seize it.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion to continue investigating with Forrester the sale of the 69 kV structures in the industrial substation to ATC and to expand the industrial substation yard.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion by Dick, second by Doug. To go ahead with the investigation into this project. Is there any more discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Next, I had discussed class approved pole ordinance. I do not have anything at this time. The reason I had this added to the schedule is, or added to the agenda last minute is the ATC project, from Beaver Dam to Horicon. I'm in the bi-weekly meetings with the ATC. We've run into a little bit of a traffic bump here with the project with AT&T. They've been real reluctant in getting their lines removed from the ATC and even transferring their lines to new structures. I met with AT&T out there because we are doing a big project that ATC is paying for us to get off of their poles to see if AT&T wanted to go joint with us underground to remove the AT&T lines. And they're like, no, we don't want to pay for any infrastructure. And I said, okay, so you guys are going to transfer the new lines? We're like, no, we're going to ask ATC to transfer ownership of the poles to AT&T, which means that ATC will have a brand new pole, and there will be a pole 4 feet away from it cut off with AT&T stuff on it, which blows my mind. And the guy that I met, I won't say his name, but he's a mayor for a neighboring city near us, and he goes, well, I'm the mayor of so-and-so, and I see that the city of Juneau doesn't have an ordinance. But I said, well, if you're gonna go down this argument here, I can certainly make one, because I said, if this was in your city, would you want a brand new pole where you can transfer your stuff to that new pole? And would you be okay with having another pole sitting right next to it 4 feet away? And he kind of just shrugged his shoulders at me, and I said, I would like to see AT&T take the route of transferring their stuff to the new poles, because the one conflict area would be on the intersection of Home Road and North Main. On the west side, ATC has a transmission pole with a bunch of guys off it. Well, they're putting a big laminated pole. If you guys ever seen a laminated pole, it's compressed wood that is really wide at the bottom and angles at the top. That's going to be on the back side of the sidewalk. On the front side of the sidewalk is their current pole, which is going to stay if AT&T doesn't transfer. They're going to take over ownership. There's going to be 5.5 feet of distance between these two poles, one on each side of the sidewalk, which is unacceptable.
Could we get ATC to refuse to transfer ownership?
I have asked, they have looked, because I said, don't you guys have a 60-day utility removal like we do? If I take a pole, put a new pole, and have an old pole right next to it, they have 60 days to remove it. They don't have that on their attachment agreement. I don't know why. I don't know how ATC doesn't have that, but they don't. So I'm gonna talk to Orban and Clark to see what we can do as a city, if this is legal. I'm sure it is. But I think it would be in our best interest. The guy did sound like he would start playing ball, but I don't wanna take the chances if it gets too late. Because if we have an ordinance that's not in place, when this happens in January, we're gonna be like, oh, shoot, we should've made something. So, I guess my first steps would be talk to Boardman Clark, see if we could even do something like this, and, go from there. I'm still gonna have conversations with ATC, but the last meeting I had, which was last week Thursday, they said that they were at a standstill and would have to top the poles and transfer ownership. And I told them, I said, well, we're a utility that's owned by the city, and I'm gonna have some very upset city officials if this is the case. And I said, and they're not gonna associate two poles 5 feet apart to you guys, they're gonna associate it to me and the utilities, the electric utilities. Because they associate electric to us, not ATC. So, at this time, I don't have anything to share, but that's just something I wanted to bring up to you guys.
Would an ordinance basically just be like minimum spacing between
Right.
poles?
Yeah. Yep. It'd be,
25 feet or
I would
something.
talk to, Anita from, you guys probably dealt with her in the past, she's really sharp. And she can get the verbiage down really well, so that we're protected as a city, we're protected as a utility, and.
As Public Service Commission, Public Service Commission.
Well, it would be tied to, she would do the communication with the PSC to make sure that everything we're doing. I'll also give you some history that AT&T just submitted to the PSC for them to be legally able to abandon their copper on poles and not take it down. Like, they don't wanna use it anymore, they're gonna leave it on poles and they're gonna leave it up to the utilities to take it down. So, it just shows you AT&T is a dying communication company, and they don't have money, they don't wanna invest in their system, and they're fighting that they don't even have money to take down their stuff. So, I will look into that, and I will hopefully have something for, next meeting. Alright, project updates. We had an electric outage, at 404 North Main Street on a Saturday. This was due to, an individual digging up his water lateral. That probably shouldn't have been digging up his own water lateral. And ended up hitting every charter drop, every secondary. We had 350 secondary main and 2 services that were struck by their excavator. They already had copper going to the backside of the sidewalk, and they took it all the way to the shut off on the front side of the sidewalk. They didn't even have to go that far. I think these guys were over their head. But anyways, we got the call at noon. We had it restored by 1:30. We billed the person that was excavating, and did we receive payment? It hasn't been 30 days yet, so that bill was issued along with, I don't know if you're gonna bring that up. But they ended up bending the valve as well, and that was replaced as well, so. We had a streetlight fault on East Oak Grove, the streetlight circuit from Glass Lost to Highland Street. This is now the that was the 4th splice on that streetlight since I've been here now. Don't know why this is failing, it's direct buried, there's a lot of rocks in there, so probably the backfill is causing there to be some faults on it. That was restored. We got a call that morning that they were out that night, and we found her fairly quickly. The ATC job update from Fairfield to along Home Road. JNR has bored in our pipe along the 3 fields going from Fairfield up to North Main Street. They ended up having to leave to go to another job, which worked out because my DOT permit was not approved yet. It has now been approved, and they will be coming back most likely next week. We installed 2 cabinets, we pulled in wire along Home Road, did the terminations, and we did an outage this past Saturday for Henry Dodge, the water tower, Archie Monuments, and the Clearview home on the top of the hill on the north side of Henry Dodge. The outage went from 7 to 10:30. We had it scheduled from 7 to noon, and everything's working good as it should. We will be working on landscaping that area, not too heavily, but just in the areas that we will be for sure not going back in. We do have a little work to do there yet. RG Schmidt struck a streetlight by glass floss when they were replacing a hydrant. It wasn't their fault. It's wrapped around the valve like 8 inches down. So we ended up fixing that fairly quickly. Took us like 15 minutes to fix. I did not bill them because they just did it with their shovel just to clean out around the valve, and they hit it. The wire followed the curb and for some reason wrapped around the front side of the valve. Don't know why it was like that. Streetlight update on East Oak. All the footings have been poured. Wire has been pulled in. We put up the 2 lights on Miller Street, and the remainder we're waiting for that 3-foot section to be poured behind the curb, just because I don't want the black poles to be splattered with the colored concrete and concrete truck to be swinging their boom along there. So we're gonna wait on the decorative streetlights, especially because they cost a pretty penny. Had the board of directors meeting at WPPI. There was a lot of discussion. We unfortunately can't share that discussion because it was a closed session meeting about some big items that may or may not be happening in the future, but as soon as we can bring it into open session and the decision made, we will bring that to light to you guys. Fair Street update. We got all the pipe ready to go. We're waiting on 2 polling eyes to pull in our 500. As soon as those get here, we're going to pull that 500 in, replace this switch gear to it's a PMH 9 to a PMH 11. It allows us to have 3 500 circuits coming out of it instead of 2 500 circuits. And then on May 15th, we are supposed to be getting our remainder switch gears, and when we do, we will finish that job up ASAP so we can remove those poles that are affecting the road project. And I discussed we have been doing some landscaping as well, and like Lori said, I as well have been working with Open Point. It's not a struggle, but it's a lot of work right now to get us started. But once it's full tilt, I think it'll be really nice to work with. So.
The night of the last meeting, why were the streetlights out that night?
That was because that circuit had to be disconnected for that road project. And that feeds all the way to.
I kind of figured that, but
Yeah.
I thought I'd ask.
And then when they cleared that section, we were able to hook it back up and get it back up and running. So, a little drama on the Facebook page, but.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Nick? If not, we will move on. Alex?
First item we have was to talk about the change order number 7 for the wastewater treatment plant.
So I have packets printed off of so you guys grab them. The one on the top is not number 1, it's the contract amendment for engineering services. The second sheet is for change order 7, which is just the itemization and dollar amount going through the change. So looking at the second page that says,
No, I don't think so.
Oh.
oh, did I not? Did we not talk about?
We're good.
I need one.
Hey,
Oh, you do that one?
I'm not even there. I don't
There's
need
10
one.
people here.
I'll look at yours.
I read it already today, so you can,
Sorry about that. I still don't, the math isn't mathing yet.
Right.
Someone probably got stuff.
It's probably on mine. Okay, so if you go to the document that says change order 7 in the top right corner, this is what we're trying to get approved tonight for the next change order. There still will be one more change order after this one. And so what's covered on this one is there's a $2,200 credit, and that was, there was some mechanical piping on change order 6 that the contractor opted to go with non-AIS compliant valves in order to minimize the lead time for the delivery. And so that came with a $2,200 credit. And then there is an $833 adder, and it's literally just connecting an exterior temperature sensor to the boiler. Everything was installed, but the way the design wasn't necessarily intended to be ran off of this sensor. And so just to have that flexibility, we're gonna have the electrician connect that. Item number 3 is a new sign for the facility. It'll be similar to the sign out on County W, but it's going to be located in between the existing control building and the new garage to kind of shuttle people to the right door when they come. There's so many doors on structure 10 where the crew works that the sign will help draw them to the correct main door for the facility. Help Alex and the crew out a little bit. And so that was an $8,000 adder for the sign. We've talked a little bit about adding 2 new replacing the 2 existing backflow preventers. So they're older and they were leaking, which that's what backflow preventers tend to do as they age. And so we figured with the project going on, we just get new ones put in, which is a little less than $5,000. And then there's heating zone valves which control like the lab and habitable area of the control building temperature, and these were existing a few years ago when the new train system was installed for controlling them. A few new valves were installed at that time, but not all of them. With this new project, we did not tie in the 2 control systems because the train system had still been so new. But with the new system online, Alex was noticing there were certain areas that were getting too warm at certain parts of the day or not warming up. And so we had the HVAC contractor look at these balancing valves, and some just weren't receiving the control to open or close or oscillate, so to speak, to get the right temperature. And so we got a price just to replace all of the valves. And it looks like it is going to be as simple as just replacing the valves and being able to connect them right to the power and control source that was existing that would have been new the 4 or 5 years ago when the train system was installed. And so those valves are a little over 20 grand. And then there is a cost for $1,500, which is just to add some additional controls to the aerators. We found that with both of them operating around mid-speed, it was just too much air into the system. And so one option is to rotate between the aerators to minimize the amount of DO going into the system. The other option would be to take off disc assemblies so there was less of an oxygen transfer. This added control just provides Alex and his crew the flexibility to be able to say when they're gonna alternate and which one is running when. So it saves him from having to remove any discs, because we wouldn't want to to reduce the oxygen that much all the time, so it's just a little more flexibility in the controls. And then the last item on this, which is just $2 shy of 12 grand, is for some additional site work, just based on how the site looked after construction and some things that, maybe should have been included in the main design, but as engineers, we don't think about tracks or where the equipment is going to go or what their main mode of getting from point A to point B is. And so in order to minimize the capital costs, because that's kind of probably where they were at in design, is how can we, you know, get the biggest bang for our buck within staying in the city's budget. And one of those things was only repaving the areas that we disturbed. Well, over the course of just time in general, there were areas that had been degraded or maybe got beat up a little bit during construction that Alex would like to see just getting all new pavement and a little new site work, just to make things a little more friendly when semis and trucks and such pull in the facility. And so the total for these items are just over 45,000, which puts us, it makes the new project costs just shy of 13.5 million, and it leaves the contingency money at about 400, just shy of 473,000.
All right.
Are there any questions for any of the items specifically in change order 7?
Do you have price per unit on those heating zone bells?
Yes, it should be in that proposal. I don't know if I can pull it up in front of me. I will try though.
Cheap,
I didn't expect a price like that if they had to put sweat in valve bodies.
So,
The DNR won't approve anything without a pretty in-depth breakdown between labor, materials, markup. It has to fit into a very explicit formula for them to approve anything.
so I don't know if, I haven't seen their proposal specifically for that. When Mark was on site, because of the location of each valve, I believe they were gonna factor in to completely re-pipe where they're physically located because the access is not realistic for
Well,
them.
that would make more
That
sense.
makes more
because-
sense, yes.
Because what I'm hearing is the valve body is good, you're just changing the actuator and the motor drive on the thing.
It's,
So
well,
that,
it's-
that eliminates draining the system and
No, it
putting all
was-
down. But you're talking about relocation, but I'm not reading that in here.
right.
It says the opposite, it says the
Says the
valves are
opposite.
gonna be
Valves.
replaced and the actuators are remaining. Actuators and controls are the same, right? Well, I mean, that's what it says.
Controls would be the train system and the actuators would be what operates the valve, which I would have thought we would have gotten actuators as
Yeah.
well.
That's the electronic portion, right?
Yeah,
So their breakdown is showing 4,600 for pipes and fitting, and 2,600 for control valves. 6 are being replaced. 64 hours for labor, which is about 8,500, and then upcharges from that. So pipes and fittings, 6 valves, labor, project management, material and markup.
so why are the valves being replaced?
So they aren't working, a lot of number of them aren't working properly, just they'll either get stuck open or shut.
So-
The train system will try to call for heat in certain rooms, but it'll try to open that valve to send heat to that room, but if the valve doesn't work correctly, it doesn't work.
And this was first observed with really warm rooms, like the locker room would get up to be 80. And then it became obvious, because all of the other stuff was new and functioning well, that these controls probably weren't closing as the control system was telling it to. So heat kept going to it.
So they've determined that the actuators still work, but the valves don't turn?
I guess just hearing that they've proposed not to do actuators, I'm a little bit leery on that specific proposal. And I maybe want a tiny bit more time to look at that. Yeah. Cause yeah, now reading that they say the actuators are good, I'm a little bit. If anything, I would've said the actuators are probably an issue and the valves themselves might be okay, yeah.
That's, yeah.
But,
And maybe it's a language thing that they literally just put control valves on there, and what they mean is control valve actuators. We're not working with a overly sophisticated HVAC contractor on this,
Yeah, well,
so
it's,
I
yeah.
can,
But it definitely says the actuators and controls will remain. So, yeah, that should be cleared up.
yeah,
What's the size of the piping on these?
they're small.
1 inch, 2
Oh,
inch.
jeez.
1 to 2 inches, yeah.
Well, unless you were using a White Rogers system, which was a motorized valve, most of these valves are set up, they're in a closed position at all times, and the only time there's any electrical draw is when they're opening. And then they'll slam shut.
It is a motor system. Pictures of this. I believe they are motors.
They're not solenoids.
No.
Even some motor ones though are.
Motor ones, yeah.
You have power and then they have
Open
a
and
spring that,
close.
they have a spring that closes
Right.
them.
Yeah, it's kind of a foolproof thing to close them, you know.
So it's like one of those, there's a series of gears and stuff on the top of it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a motorized one.
Oh yeah, that's a fancy schmancy one there.
Nylon gears and all. Straight on it.
So I guess I would like a little bit more time to clarify that with the HVAC contractor, but
You can still make the motion with the contingency of the clarification of item
right.
5, so you don't prolong.
So, well, and that would be,
Price might be different though.
well, that's what
If you're
my
dealing with
concern would be.
valves versus actuators.
You could make the motion that, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but if that price includes actuators with valve replacement, I think that price would be what we're after. If not, maybe it would require more fine tuning. But that motion sounds a little wordy.
You can approve the change order without item 5.
To be addressed on change order number 8.
Yeah, to be addressed on change order number 8.
Updated number.
Is that,
Some,
is that workable?
That is fine with me. I guess my one concern is we go back to Belanger and they're like, yeah, it is for the actuators, that's the price. And then we just reworked all of our paperwork for
right, so
something
there is-
just for
there is
no
MSA
reason.
associated cost with repairing it. Yeah.
So they are moving the valves to more easily.
No, that's what the service lead told me when we looked at all of them.
With the amount of hours you
Was
specified,
60
it's got
hours
it.
to replace
66
6
hours?
valves.
for
Well,
6,000.
so if the actuators aren't being replaced, it should be easier to get to the actuators
Once they're done.
once they're done.
Correct.
If it doesn't include them, then there's gonna be another change order anyways, right? So you make the motion and hope that it's included, and if it's not, there's gonna be another change order coming. Right. For actuators.
Is there plans for another change order anyway?
There already are, yep, and I actually have a.
So MSA can absorb those costs there.
So some of the items that are still lingering that'll be on change order 8 are rebuilding the influent pump valves. And we're still negotiating for the additional time for roof demo, so that's still out there. We're still negotiating for credit for the gantry crane, so that is still out there. And then there's the, there might be a change for heat pump controls for on the boiler heat pump system. I'm not familiar with that yet. We have our principal engineer kind of looking into what we have further. So that's just kind of a placeholder for now. I don't have a lot of information on that one. And then I just have a few of the direct purchases that Alex and I have kind of been keeping on the back burner for the final utilizing of loan funds.
Have we reached the minimum of what we were supposed to be spending yet? Because it wasn't there in order to get the big grant money, that there had to be a certain dollar amount on a loan or something?
Is that for the cost of energy, or the energy savings,
Isn't there?
the focus on energy? That
No.
might be a focus on energy requirement.
I guess it just, we keep spending more money of the loan money, just because the loan money's out there, doesn't mean we have to spend it.
So anything that is left on the table for contingency, what goes with that would be Sensian money that they contributed and whatever your grant ratio
That's
is.
okay.
And I'm not exactly sure between the two of those other sources of funding, what your loan to, we'll say, grant money ratio was, but I think it was
I
significant.
guess
I
what,
thought it was like 50%.
what it sounds like you're asking is, we got a percentage of principal forgiveness. Now, I don't think there's a minimum amount we have to get over to reach that principal forgiveness. I think it's just any funds within the total contract, including contingency money, receives these principal forgiveness.
The way Clean Water Fund works with their principal forgiveness is I think on wastewater projects, they max out at 2 million. And so you basically have to have a $4 million project to get the $2 million grant. So when we were doing design, anything north of 4-5 million, you got your $2 million grant. And the way you receive that through dispersions is you don't get to use all that right away and then just go on the loan. They do it proportionally as you go through it. So then at the end, when you have your pool of contingency money, some of that would be loaned, so some of that might reduce the amount of loan that you take out, thereby reducing your annual loan debt. But there's gonna be a portion of that too that's free money.
Okay.
And so it just comes at that point of reflecting, where are we, how much will we really save for our annual loan debt by not utilizing this last pool of money?
So we basically have to spend 500,000 to save 10,000, or that type of.
Kind of, right.
I-
So for other communities, like the ones that are really, really poor, really, really need a project, they might get like a 70% principal forgiveness on a project that maybe it's only.
I think this was $1 million for phosphorus upgrades and then 15% off the total project.
Okay. Which probably would have maxed out your 2 million. So you probably got 3 million from Clean Water Fund grant money. So it's that money proportionally throughout what what you've received for disbursements plus whatever Sensien's contribution was.
Sensient was paying 34% of total project, so.
So it's probably pretty close to
Close to half.
Yeah. So say at the end of this, you guys have $250,000 of contingency money sitting on there. If you walk away, that would reduce your loan by $125,000, which probably isn't gonna have a great impact on, you know, a $15 million annual debt coverage, but, you would also be walking away from the $125,000 free money. So, it just kinda comes down to how much is it needed, how much is it gonna help the team versus leaving free money on the table.
Okay. So how do you wanna do this?
I think in the small possibility that Belanger is correct in what they're proposing, that if you are comfortable with approving the change order as it sits, then we could, Alex and I will work to confirm that this cost is reflective of what's gonna correct our issue. And then, if not, we'll proceed with the other items on here, knowing that they're approved, and take that one and change it out for plus or minus on change order 8 based on what our investigation discovers.
That sounds reasonable to me. I can make an emotion for that.
You're making that a motion, Mark?
Yes.
Do you have that, Lori?
Sure.
How's that?
Not exact, but I
Could you
got it.
That was kinda clear as mud, wasn't it?
Approve change order 7, pending item 5 includes
Investigation of item 5.
Investigation item 5 to determine
To-
exactly what that
to
is.
include, do we basically wanna say if that includes actuators?
Yes.
You're comfortable with that, right?
Assuming that includes actuators, so pending item 5 includes both valve replacement and actuator replacement.
Is there any more discussion? We need a second. I'll second it. So we have a motion and a second.
Who's, you're seconding?
Yep. Is there any more discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Now the next papers that are stapled together are the one that's so much more fun to discuss. This is a request for MSA to amend their time and expense contract for on-site construction work, an amount of $35,000 that would be not to exceed that amount. And so what this would cover, how I came up with this amount is I looked at the change order work and other work that's happening on site, and I figured that what I would feel most comfortable with personally would be about 3 more site visits for the process mechanical work that has been included in the change orders, to watch it go in and then just to confirm after that it was installed correctly and everything's functioning as it should. So that would be 3 site visits. And then there would be 3 visits that would just be dedicated to confirming all of the changes and all of the punch list items and everything got completed correctly. And then there would be an additional 3 site visits that would be specifically for the site work. So coming out before asphalt comes, walking the site with Alex, making sure everything is going to drain the way we want it to. And then while asphalt's going on, just to come out and make sure that they're doing their proof rolling and everything's going in the way it's supposed to. and then one follow-up visit to go through and make sure everything that's been completed is properly draining. So that would be a total of 9 more site visits. There's probably a decent potential that some of those site visits will be able to be accomplished in one. And so that's, again, this is hopefully, I'm hoping a conservative estimate that's not to exceed. This also includes 2 more meeting attendances, so it would be 1 more commission meeting like tonight, and 1 more progress meeting on site with the contractor, and that would be both me and Sherry attending. And then, the open house, if you guys want us to help with that or be on site during that or anything like that, there's a little bit of money in that 35,000 for that. As well as 12 hours of expert support, just because of some of the stuff that has come up with the HVAC system, leaning on our principal engineer to be able to read between the lines and really kind of spell out for us what's the best way, the best solution to move forward with for owners. And I think that kind of covers everything that, I foreseen that would be required to
Would
close
these
out
funds
construction.
come out of contingency?
Could they? Yes. I believe.
This is
So-
what we need to know is how we can pay for it.
Yep, so I would have to okay that with Tyler. Sometimes it's very simple, yes, the money's there, go ahead and use it. Other times it might not be as black and white depending on why is there a need for more time? Is it because the contractor was negligent and the schedule got pushed out? Because then they might not be so quick to say yes. They might want a pound of flesh out of the contractor to make it fair. I think a conversation with Tyler, I don't see him saying no to this.
And why is it that we have to have this added or amended?
Um,
The original contract just didn't, you guys used all that already?
Correct, yep. Just with all the additions between the change orders and betterments to the project and
So with the contractor reimbursable time and materials funds, has that been reimbursed yet to MSA?
no. Nope, so that would still get change ordered back as a credit on the last change order.
I don't imagine we know what that's up to yet. It
I-
would've been on an invoice, I would.
I don't know which one, cause I would need a breakdown of what was,
I'd be guessing, but I wanna say like 8 to 10. But that might be a big guess. But I was just recently talking about this with Sherry and I thought that's what it was. Cause the other thing we have to still do yet is get all of our allowance, any non-used allowance funds changed back to the, as a credit.
And part of this, and I can, admit that you had itemized, or MSA had itemized, roughly $15,000 to $16,000 in expenses for them looking into things for us that might not have come to fruition. Legwork that they had done for when we had the run pumps replaced, stuff that they looked into for us along the way. That didn't necessarily change, so. There was some added expenses that things I had then investigate that counted against that budget, so. I guess between the 15,000 there and the 10,000 that the contractors did in added expenses, you're close to that number anyway.
All right.
You said 9 site visits, how many hours are you talking per site visit?
So each site visit would be about $2,200, that's assuming I make them, that's 2.5 hours of travel time and 6.5 hours on site.
2 hours of follow-up time.
Or yeah, there's also 2 hours of
Hmm?
follow-up time and project management time for each day.
So what happens with costs with like subcontractors when you guys are requesting information, they send back bad information, you have to start that process all over, you know, there's, for the project like this, there's gotta be a lot of wasted time, right, that we're not getting anything out of, and the subcontractors probably aren't eating any cost either. Is there nothing in place for securement with things like that? Like, I know I've sat in a couple of meetings where you guys are getting frustrated because you're not getting stuff from subcontractors. Well, that's stuff that we're paying for you guys to visit twice, and like, we're getting the short end of the stick on that. You know, it seems like there's no securement with situations like that where we should be getting a credit from the subcontractors for wasting your time, which ends up being billed to us.
I mean, it all comes down to barment, right? If the city felt strongly enough, it would be considering filing some sort of case of debarment against that subcontractor. MSA has a very limited reach because we don't have a contract with the contractor at all, let alone tiers down. And sometimes you can be working for a sub of a sub of a sub. And really, it's the process of them meeting the requirements that are pretty robust for these federally funded projects, and trying to trust the generals that we work with regularly to hire quality subs, and regularly expressing our feelings to them when they don't. And I don't know that staff could have foreseen any issues with the HVAC stuff on this one, but there have been, you know, the writing has been on the wall every step of the way on the back end of this project, so it's definitely been validated that there was an issue there. I don't think that based on the contract, legal wise, I don't think that there's a lot of options for the city to regain anything to make themselves feel whole without assessing liquidated damages, which is always an option for a municipality to consider to get that money back out. It's just, it's a legal process, so you start paying lawyers, and everybody's doing one of these, a whodunit, everybody's gonna get their timelines out, all their evidence, and sit and battle it out about why this money should be given back to the city. And I've went down this road with contractors before, and it's amazing, cause you'll see case law where you have everything in the contract spelled out, all of the reasoning why you should be owed this money back, and the judge will say, look, your facility was treating, you weren't out of your space physically, you're not out anything monetarily, what do you want? And a lot of times they'll side with the contractors if there isn't a way to say explicitly this cost was, that subcontractor's fault. Sorry, that was a really long-winded answer, Nick.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. What is your pleasure?
Are all the site visits required?
No, this was my opinion of what I would feel good about closing out the project. And again, this is assuming that I make all the site visits, the price will go down if Emma, my understudy, does the site visit instead, so.
And they've been, now that the budget has been dwindling, they've been getting pretty good at asking if we want, if I want them on site to see this or that, so on and so forth. But we just kinda got to the point where we only have, I'm sure we're basically out of funds right now, so, and we're not done. So unless I want them to say sayonara, we gotta do something.
All right. So. It's not a perfect situation, but I guess. I guess I will make a motion to approve the amendment.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion?
Dependent upon it being recouped through the contingency account.
If at all possible.
No, period.
Yeah, well, yeah. So,
Do you have a solution if it can't, cause it's not in MSA's hands to make that decision? It's basically whether or not the DNR is going to approve that or not.
Logic would say it should.
It should, yeah. And obviously DNR's paid for that $1.3 million of engineering so far, so.
It all depends on the CME. I've seen it go either way, and they're at the discretion to make these decisions themselves.
Problem is, we still, they do it or not, we need them to do it.
Does your motion have that contingency or not?
No, and then right now, I can amend to put it that way.
No, if it's not, then we can move forward, but if it is, then you might have to revisit then.
Yeah, that's the issue here. I mean, we can say by the contingency, but if the contingency ain't, we still need to have them here to do this.
The need doesn't go away depending on how we pay for it.
Yes, exactly. We have to pay for it either way.
So how are you gonna pay for it?
We've got money to pay for the 35,000. We have, sewer has money that would be able to cover the cost of the 35,000 if need be, yes.
Thank you, Lori.
So in other words,
And
my
we don't, I
motion would
don't
be
see that we have an option.
to approve the amendment with the,
I mean, didn't we just,
Submitting it initially to the contingency, and if it doesn't, then we have funds to pay for it.
So, okay. So you're approving the, you want to approve amendment number 1 with the preface of trying to get it paid through the contingency.
contingency.
At all possible.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. All right.
So do we need an answer on the contingency before we get this signed? And I'm only asking because I would really like to do another site visit later this week because there's a lot of work going on this week. And I feel like it would be more responsible of me to have this signed before I coordinate with Alex to come back.
I don't think it
Well, it
changes our ability.
sounded to me like the motion didn't require the contingency.
Right.
Okay,
So we just
so
have
I
to
should
try
be
to
good,
get it
okay,
through.
okay, I just
So
wanna make sure.
you need a signature?
Yes, she does.
Yes, that would be great.
I have a pen.
Thank you, sir.
I don't have the cash in my pocket.
I thought you had the cash bag. So that was all that I had, other than the summary of the other changes, which we already kinda talked about, that might be coming, so. Are there any other questions for me about what we've discussed or the project?
Yeah, the next meeting is when?
That is next week, is it?
It's the third Thursday of the month?
Hold
Have
on.
we,
No, that was moved though, I thought.
did we even confirm that we're having another one?
I thought,
We weren't even supposed to have the last one.
I thought Leon said he wanted
It's in
another
for
one.
May 15th, but I thought Leanne said we were gonna push it back.
Yeah, you're right. So it's currently scheduled for May 15th, but it might either be remote or moved. So I can confirm and send you an email back and make sure you're
Okay.
cued in on that.
Because I know if Doug wants to come, he can come out to the meeting.
Well,
If you're free that day, you know?
if it is remote and there's
Oh.
work going on, I'll probably try and coordinate it to come out by Alex for the meeting anyway, so you're more than welcome to.
Okay. Or Dick, or Ross, whoever wants to come.
Everybody can come join us, they all that fancy room
You
now.
know. Yeah.
If you have too many, you have to have a meeting.
15th a weekday, I'm assuming, right?
It's a.
Which is fine.
it's a-
Keep calling it.
All I have to do is,
Wait a minute.
Dick, all I would need to do is just post something outside. That we've done that when you went to a dinner or something once, and there was another one.
As long as when there's a quorum, you have to have a meeting with an agenda.
Right.
We did it for when we went to the Golden Mass too.
Right.
Same thing, nobody paid. We didn't get paid for that one.
You didn't have any public comment?
No. All right. Okay, thank you.
Do you need anything else from me? Thanks, Alex. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a good night. Have a good night, guys.
Drive safe.
Thank you.
So finish up, Alex.
Project update. Good amount going on at the wastewater plant lately, and not all of it's great. We had a outbreak of filamentous bacteria, which if any of you are familiar or in the past with that, what it is it's a strain of bacteria in wastewater that really restricts settling, and everything that our processes work off of is gravity settling. So between the clarifiers letting the mainstream of bugs back to the ditch, or also within the digesters and sludge storage, being able to decant those and allow water out so that we're only taking and removing sludge and hauling that to a pond. So we had major filament issues both in the digesters and sludge storage and in the oxidation ditch. This did coincide with one of our air jet mixers had failed towards the end of March. So that piece of equipment is in the digester, and it functions to both mix and add air to the digester. We had sent out a sample of all of our bugs to get identified by a professional microscope lab. And they came back with the 3 strains of filaments that we were struggling with, and also the environments that they thrive in. So we learned that the filaments we were struggling with most prefer high amounts of fats, oils, and greases in the water, low levels of dissolved oxygen in the water, and low levels of food compared to the amount of bugs total in the wastewater. So that air jet mixer failing was the first strike that we ran into, providing an environment that is more selective for these filaments. And then also coming out of last winter where we had those ammonia treatment issues, we were holding more solids on hand to try and help treat ammonia, but we held on to them for too long, so then we rolled into now having too many solids for too long, and then these filaments take off. So ultimately the issues we ran into was a lot of extra operator input with trying to get this sludge to settle so that we can get it out of here. Cause ultimately, the fix is to get the proportion of nutrients back to normal, so that we have enough food compared to the amount of bugs we have on hand. But I can't get the bugs out if I can't get them to settle. So we experimented with polymers and chlorine and different chemicals that we could use and different approaches to settling. And, after a few attempts, we finally got it to thicken out so that we could transfer it over and actually get it hauled out. So it was the third week of April, we wound up actually hauling 15 loads in 1 week just to get it out of here, because it settled, it thickened, and we just got it out. And now the plant is really starting to turn around. We're gonna try to be a little bit more aggressive with the amount of solids we hold on hand, and try to keep that lower, just to keep the environment more conducive to the bugs that we wanna grow at the wastewater plant. So I had been hanging on to them longer, just cause the longer you hang on to them, the more you let them settle, thicken, it gets even thicker the more you hang on to it, but I have learned that there's a fine line. So I'm trying to save money on hauling, and then I wound up having to spend it all in 1 week, so. That's one of those things that just bit us in the butt, but we're learning kinda how we're gonna have to operate this plant month by month here, and it's just throwing curveballs at us, and that's, I guess, one thing that, you know, we're gonna have to keep an eye on, is we don't really have a strong fats, oils, and grease ordinance in Juneau. So we should at some point visit, you know, there's cities that, and it's commonplace to require grease traps to be cleaned once a year, you know, just to have any restaurants or places with commercial kitchens send you that they maintain their grease traps.
Or can they do it 4 times a year?
Right, but at least, you know, on some interval, just to have some proof that they're actually looking at it, and they're not just sending the grease to
I
us.
don't know if that's a Jefferson County thing there.
Okay. Yeah, and I have to look into if there's county stuff
I
already.
think that's a Jefferson County thing that they have to
Right.
make 4 times a year.
So, we'll have to look into that. Yeah, if Dodge County does something similar, I don't know. All I know is we've just gotta try to make sure our grease is not coming to the wastewater plant as much as we can. Yeah, the other thing is just, it's proposed in change order 8, or it's at least talked about, we're looking at it, having some more spare equipment on hand. Because, you know, if I would've had a spare airjet mixer sitting in the shop, I could've saved, you know, $15,000 in hauling that I had to spend in 1 week. You know, so, you know, having some.
Was that covered under warranty, or is it?
The repairs were covered under warranty, but the side effects of it being gone.
Not having it though is a problem.
Right, is the issue that's gonna cost you in the long run. So, I'd like to kick around the idea of having basically a full spare set, so then you could also have it where, you could run the salt digester as well, completely independently, so. That's something we'll talk about when it gets that far. So, otherwise, R.G. Schmidt replaced the public side lead water laterals on South Main Street at the end of April. They also replaced the fire hydrant in front of Glass Floss. They got it by the semi in March. They did that on Friday. That hydrant replacement will be billed to the semi trucks insurance company.
Can you hit them hard enough to cover it?
I sure wish, yeah. Customer on, Nick alluded to it, the customer on North Main Street, 404 North Main, also had the private side lead lateral replaced on their own. As you mentioned, it was a bit of they were over their heads. The reason they pulled back behind the sidewalk was because the excavator hooked the lateral and kinked it under the sidewalk, so they had to dig back further. And they hit the power, and they sounded like they touched some other utilities along the way. And then they replaced it with copper, which according to our ordinances, we require type case off copper. So there's somewhere along the way, we should probably look at amending our ordinances as well for the materials required, because nobody thought to call the utility and ask what we would recommend they put in. They just looked at the ordinances, bought the copper, and showed up and put it in, so.
Obviously didn't pull a permit or get any inspections either, so.
No. So, and that was within the letter of requirement that I sent them, was this needs to be replaced and it needs to be done by, with a permit by a plumber. And they chose to employ a plumber from Milwaukee, who I just assumed pulled a permit, because I don't go around to every job site asking for permits. And then after the fact, I talked to the building inspector and asked him, did you have a permit on that job? And he said, no. Okay, so I guess we've kind of spoken outside of the meeting a little bit about it, and I guess I'm just happy that it's replaced and it's working and it's not leaking, and it was done professionally by the inspections that I had made. Permit, I think, would have been the right way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, like, our protocol is, like, we don't reconnect, like, we'll pull the service outage for it, but we don't reconnect until we get a call from the inspector, and then I know that a permit was pulled.
Right.
I mean, you guys can do the same thing, right? You guys shut the water off, and it doesn't get turned back on until.
They obviously shut their own water off.
Well, we did shut the water off on Friday,
Oh,
and that's a kind of a point of contention that we ran into more than once. And it varies a lot municipality by municipality, as if you let plumbers touch your valves or not. We typically say that we don't let plumbers touch our curb stops. But there are certain plumbers that you've worked with in the past that think they can run the city and do whatever they want. And I've had firm conversations with them, and they don't seem to care anyway. But yeah, so,
usually a fine takes care of that.
yeah. We might come to that.
We've done that where if someone disconnects a meter without us or our approval, I do an inspection, which then gets charged a reconnection fee. So they get a fine, which is the fee to reconnect it after my inspection. So, and usually it requires me to do like a wire and affidavit to them. So at least it has your checks and balances, and you're charging them something for doing this, so.
The grading at the wastewater treatment plant driveway is basically, it's done as of this afternoon. Driveway, last I heard, was going to be paved next Tuesday. That's the biggest thing going on right now. One struggle that the stops foreman is running into is that the plan did not show grading very well, and they're gonna run into some issues with drainage, so they're trying to come up with creative solutions to that will work. And the main issue being at the top of the hill between the new ditch and the old plants. It's a large flat space surrounded by concrete structures, so there was a few like staircases set at grades that should have been higher, so we might have to come up with interesting, sloughs or however we have to do it to get water to run, which is not ideal, but it was something that was certainly missed in the design portion of this project. So I I have started seeking out engineering for our next project that is coming up that's DNR mandated for disinfection to be installed at the wastewater treatment plant. I'd spoken to an engineer at Country Engineering. Seems like a really good fit, I guess is what I'll say.
Do you know if anybody else has used them?
A few places, yeah. And they've come very highly regarded from people. Their focus is on smaller municipalities and working with less than 10,000 resident places. And then he stressed, they're not a one project engineer, they are develop a relationship and try to keep our business basically over time, so. I don't know, I dipped my toes into, writing requests for qualifications to solicit engineers. I don't know, I'm not an expert at that by any means. I don't know if there's a template or who you even ask for help for that. Cause yeah, like as everyone's aware of how this project has gone, I think I'm not immediately looking to jump back into bed with MSA for the next one, so.
I think it's always good to have options and try other people to see what.
And it being a relatively small project, only adding one piece of equipment, it shouldn't be crazy hard. The push for this is just that we have to, based on the DNR's mandated timeline for wastewater plant, we have to have our facilities plan submitted by March of next year to the DNR. And talking with Town and Country, they said that's about a 6-month process to develop this facilities plan. So we have to have something figured out by this fall and on the books, so. We're kind of at that point where we gotta start talking to somebody about it. So. Otherwise,
That's it?
yeah, we got the East Oak Grove Street project is coming up with the paving, and we budgeted to replace some of that infrastructure ourselves. And with being short-handed now, which Matt will allude to shortly, I don't know how and when we're gonna get it all done, and hopefully I can get help from the street guys. And I don't know if Nick is gonna have extra time, but
What project?
just replacing East Oak Grove valve boxes and stuff.
Do that in a day.
There's 10 of them, so. We might need help from some other city employees, but hopefully they can get this all taken care of. That's all I have.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Alex? Amazing the DNR tells us we have to have it done and larger communities don't have to do this stuff. Not
Most
on the same
larger,
timeline.
Most, this item specifically, most larger communities already have.
All right. All right, nothing else. I have discussed and approved the acceptance of resignation from Elizabeth Kahn. I don't have a copy of it.
I don't have a copy of it either.
Elizabeth resigned effective the 1st of May.
Just her last day was.
Her last day was the 30th. So I will make a motion to accept her resignation. I mean, she's no longer here.
I'll second it.
She told, she She's, didn't mind the work or anything like that, but she, decided she wanted to, she's doing something else now. She's working in Sun Prairie. So, that's all. We have a motion by me, second by Ross, to accept her resignation. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
And just a note on that, it had been presented to personnel, it was already approved by personnel, or accepted.
Yeah,
by
utility personnel did approve the
Right.
approving the, changing the utility office hours. I've talked to Lori and to Pam about it. City Hall has changed their hours, summer, so they're going to summertime hours. I guess we looked at it, I've talked, and I guess Pam's suggested that we don't really change our office hours. We keep them steady so that everybody knows when we're open. And kind of rotate between Lori and Pam on the weekend, who would work the Friday afternoon. Is that correct?
We have discussed a couple of options. First of all, City Hall went with 7 to 4 Monday through Thursday and 7 to 11 on Friday. We find that with our customers that a lot of them are sneaking in right at 4 o'clock, that it would be more beneficial for us to, and we don't have that much traffic in the morning. So, one of our options to present was 7:30 to 4:30, so that we're open a little bit later for those customers that come in at 4, and then we end up staying till 4:15 or 4:30 anyway. And then 7:30 to 11:30 on Fridays. And just leaving it at that. Second option that you're referring to is to keep our office hours 7:30 to 4:30, Monday through Friday. And then one of us would have a Friday off every other week and alternate, so I would do a Friday, she would do the next Friday, I would do the following Friday, that type of thing. So that the office hours remain consistent. The other option is to just do the winter hours that City Hall has mentioned that is gonna be 8 to 4. And we would just do 8 to 4 all year long instead of going with summer hours. So that would be another option that we're fine with. With those though, one of the things that needed to be, stated in with the change of hours is that there is no half-hour lunch anymore, that we get paid for lunch. There's a 20-minute, we work a straight 8 hours, and then that covers a 20-minute lunch hour or lunch break. Which that is also what City Hall has approved. Because none of us, on that note, Pam and I never, I shouldn't say never, but very seldom do we ever take a lunch. We're at our desk eating and working at the same time. So.
So,
Yeah, so we just felt that from the customer standpoint, to be 7:30 to 4:30 would be better for our customers. But if we need to do 7 to 4 to match City Hall and to match the guys' hours and whatever, you know, that's what, we can roll with whatever.
What do you have now? 7:30 to 4?
So if you do 7:30 to 4:30, then you're taking a lunch or just working an extra hour?
No, it'd just be that would be no lunch also in there.
And then they would,
That's-
work
it would be
4 hours
9
on Friday.
Oh, okay, all right, yep, got it.
So how do you handle Friday?
If we would be doing the typical summer hours, it would be 7:30 to 4:30. I mean, 7:30 to 11:30, I'm sorry, would be the 4 hours. But if we wanted to change the office hours to stay 7:30 to 4:30 Monday through Friday instead of a half a day on Friday, then Pam and I would alternate Fridays.
I know I would like to see a consistency because of, well, City Hall and utilities having different hours, but mostly my concern would be consistency with the working staff hours because of reconnections. We don't do after-hour reconnects, so if you have someone coming in at 4 o'clock, we're gone. If someone comes in between 4 and 4:30, we're forced to come back in, so now we're gonna pay overtime for an employee to do a reconnection fee.
Why can't we tell them that we can't disconnect or
But
reconnect
that,
after 4?
it says in our rates and rules, during normal business hours.
Okay.
So it has to be whatever our business hours are established, that's how long we're able to do reconnects up to.
Okay.
So if somebody comes in Friday afternoons now in the summer when you're working summer hours,
Yeah, that's why I would
You
like
have
to see
to- you have to-
consistency
2-hour call-in.
where we do, I would like to see 7 to 4 with matching the consistency of the policy, but that's just me.
And that's fine, that's just,
Call it a Friday afternoon, because they're still here Friday.
Not
well,
if they do the.
if we do regular summer hours.
If they
it
do
would
what
be.
the city hall is doing, it's matching the working staff's summer hours, which then matches the reconnection, rules that we have established.
so City Hall's doing 7 to 4,
And 7 to
and then
11.
7 to 11.
And that's
Correct.
we
And
would-
then it would be closed on Friday afternoon.
Correct.
And that would match
we-
our working staff.
That's what you're working to?
They've never done
You're
this.
We've
also-
never done that, but set your watch for next month.
But we've been keeping tally of customers coming in, and we do get a fair amount on Friday afternoons to come in and pay. But we have also, I just bought in, looking forward in this decision, I bought a little envelope holder to put out by the lockbox or the drop box, so that we can put a sign on the door that they can go and put their money in there, in the envelope, and put it in the drop box, rather than, we don't have to be open, just in case, for those people that come in Friday afternoons, because a lot of them get paid Fridays and come in and pay the bill. But then, being open Friday afternoon really throws it for the disconnects.
Well, and like to go back on that though, like, I can count on probably 1 or 2 fingers how many times I've had to come in on Friday to reconnect someone after my summer hours.
Right.
Because usually we do disconnects on either Tuesday or Wednesday,
Yeah.
and they're usually rectified the next day. Those that don't pay are usually one tenants that are gone.
So why would we not give them the ability to pay their bill on Friday afternoon? If the girls are willing to work Friday afternoon, they alternate. I'm all in favor of service to the public. I don't like cutting back on any opportunity that somebody might have after work to show up at 3:30, 4 o'clock to pay their bill. I got the same opinion at City Hall. I think we just keep cutting back, and we're doing an injustice to the public more so than accommodating the employees.
And starting at 7, there's not gonna be, we
Yeah,
don't have any foot
I
traffic
can understand that.
for that
I'd
first
rather see the
hour.
later hours, to tell you the truth. If you girls were willing to do that way,
Right.
you know, flip-flop and,
Yeah.
But I
'cause
don't understand, you said
The-
one
the
person
alternate-
would work Monday through Thursday, that's 7, they're only working 9 hours a day.
Right, but the next week we're gonna work the extra day. So
So
in
take
one
it
pay
half days
period,
on
we're still,
Friday.
instead of doing 2 half Fridays, we're doing 1 full Friday. So
They're
one
working
week we're
5
gonna,
days.
one
So
week we're
you'd be
gonna do.
working one week 36 hours and next week 44 hours?
Correct.
To get overtime?
No, no.
Just
it would-
salary?
Yeah, no, it's not salary, but it's not, that, I guess that would have to be a stipulation then, yeah.
Same,
Is
That
it
gets
like a
messy
flex?
too.
same with City Hall has to. If they're working 9 hours a day,
City Hall's
Oh,
only
it's-
working
it's 40 hours
4
a week,
hours,
though, you get
4
overtime.
hours on Friday, though they're not working. They're not staying open till.
over 8,
No,
over 40.
it's, we get paid
It's over
for,
40.
we
It's
only
you-
have-
Not over 8, it's just over 40.
it's over 40 hours a week, it's
Oh.
overtime.
The over 8 stuff, that, back in the old days.
We can look in the, employee handbook if you need to, but it is for 40 hours, it's not 8 hours a day.
So that, I mean, it doesn't create, I guess that would be doing more of a service for the employees rather by not taking, not letting them have that half day off on every other Friday.
Yeah, we did a 3-day weekend.
Yeah, every other week.
Yeah.
But
What,
they could probably say, I should be paid overtime for that 4 hours.
Yeah, that's, either we just work 8s 5 days a week, or else we do 4 9s and a 4 on Friday. That's where I'm at, either one or the other. Anything else,
The people need to adjust
Gonna
the
vote
hours
no.
too. I mean, if City Hall is doing the 7 to 4, I mean, hours are being established. And, I don't know, I just
and
think
then,
it's cleaner if there's consistency.
and then they're gonna change them on, for winter hours.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that creates a problem in itself. You switch times, wait a minute, I can, now,
They could have done the same thing at City Hall that Lori's proposing, 3 people working up there, or 2.5 people working up there. We could have maintained Friday service to the public and then just taken one girl work one week and one girl work the other.
And keep in mind, it hasn't passed council yet.
True.
So
Hear that, Doug?
if there are concerns, people can voice them.
no. Do we need to decide this tonight? Not, I don't know if we really need to
Like,
iron.
if we decide on it, does it have to go to council also for us, or is
Well,
ours
I
just
think-
done here?
I think
Well,
what
I don't
should have
believe
happened
so.
is it should have been a joint personnel
Yeah.
with, because the policy affects the handbook. And then,
Yeah, the handbook specifically says, the handbook specifically talked about City Hall. And then there's also things for the, other workers that we have.
Yeah, well, the new, hang on, I've got the new version of what they're saying.
And again, it hasn't been passed. But you might be right, it should maybe go to the joint personnel.
what's the state of the summer hours on that? Unless this is an issue.
This was a change.
Show up on Friday afternoon to pay your bills, nobody's there, that's just one more reason we don't like city employees, right?
Very good.
This is the version that was, approved by personnel. So it's gonna be changing, having Department of Public Works, City Hall, and Utilities, summer hours.
We got it.
And they have 9 hours of Monday through Thursday, 4 hours on Fridays, from April 15th to October 1st.
Did it change from when it starts?
Yes, it's extended, April 15th to October 1st, depending on how the pay periods fall or something, I think.
Used to be Memorial Day to Labor Day.
Yeah.
Summer got longer.
But the April 15th.
Climate change.
A little warmer. That's one of the big
Jeez.
projects.
May 1st to September 1st.
So you do have several people coming in on a Friday afternoon, cause they probably got their paycheck and
Yep.
they came in, okay, yeah, another excuse not to pay. Well, they were closed and they.
But that's why we bought the little envelope holder to put by the lockbox, or the drop box. So they still can provide us.
I got one of those.
I don't know, do you wanna make a decision tonight, or do you wanna,
Looks like it's gonna be decided by council, right? So, I mean, I'll make sure.
No, I think
that-
you can set your own offer.
we didn't set our own, we did that when we changed the hours before. We didn't go to change them. City Hall went to the same hours we had.
But this is, right, but this is going to be affecting the
You know,
employee handbook.
What never was, like, this also should state business hours, because, like, our employees, like my employees and the DPW employees, we've always followed this summer hours, but the office staff for, you know, City Hall and our utilities, even though it says utility employees, DPW employees, yeah, it didn't say City Hall, but like our office still operated at 7:30 to 4.
Right.
So I think whatever verbiage is placed in here should say City Hall and utility office hours, along with the same verbiage here for non-office working employees. I think there just needs to be some clarification here as what.
I don't know if you wanna put office, what the actual hours are in a policy handbook. I don't know if that's true, that's a good
Right.
idea,
Right.
but,
And those might have just been written on there to know what was approved.
I think we should wait and see what happens with the city.
We'll probably have a personnel meeting sometime this month. I'm hoping we have wonderful a lot of applications to go through. I'm not holding my breath on it. Have we had any applicants?
One applicant thus far.
So, all right, so we will put this on the agenda for next month, Lori.
Okay?
It's getting later than I would have hoped. Can we put this off and have the closed session and move it to next month?
I don't think what I have to say is gonna take that long.
Don't skip the mayoral comments.
Well, okay. Then we will go to the mayoral comments, and then we'll go to closed session.
All I got to say, I think what Nick proposed tonight as far as the minimum that ATC is requiring of us, I'm thinking that it's a good idea to move forward with that and certainly endorse what I know about it, certainly endorse what he's trying to do here. And I think it puts our maybe in a lot better position than we are currently.
Okay. So, and then I will entertain a motion to go into closed session. Motion by Ross, second by Bart to go into closed session as per 19.85 sub 1 sub C. So, roll call vote we have to have.
Do you need something to write on for the minutes and
I
stuff?
will need something. Ross.
Aye.
Bart.
Aye.
Doug.
Aye.
Dick.
Aye.
Back. Aye. We are now going to go into closed session.